Hello everyone, it's Channin here for Hero Art. In today's video, we are going to create this no-line watercolor birthday card featuring products included in both the classic and the premium May My Monthly Hero kit. We're going to start with the floral cake stamp set, which again is included in the classic and premium May My Monthly Hero kits. I've pulled out several images from that set, including the cake, all 5 candles, and the cake stand. I'm going to stamp them onto this A2 panel of Luxe white watercolor paper, which is also included in the classic and premium My Monthly Hero kits. I've inked it up with the included contour ink, stamped it, and this ink is intended for no-line coloring, so it's a very, very light ink. I did ink it up and stamp my images like 3 times just to make it a little bit bolder so I could see them. And now we're ready to watercolor. I'm going to use these watercolor swatch cards for my actual coloring medium. I have a laminated piece of paper over here on the right. I've sprayed some water onto it. I'm going to grab my paintbrush, grab some water, and then with that damp brush start to activate the color or pigment that's on the watercolor swatch card. I'm going to start with this beautiful beige color and actually color the main body of the cake with this color. I'm going to start on the sides of the cake, and I start there because I want it to be a little bit more intense for right now I'm on the left side, but I will repeat this on the right side as well. But I want the color to be a little bit more intense, a little bit more pigmented on the side, and then once I start to work my way towards the center, I will take my brush and get a little bit more water to thin out the color to make it lighter, so we have a gradation where it's lighter in the center of the cake and darker on the left and right sides of the cake, and that will just give that illusion of roundness or of a cylinder. So now I'm working my way to the right side here, and this is a pretty easy process. I really enjoyed using this watercolor swatch. I thought it was really fun and simple, and I had a lot of control over my water use. In fact, when I watercolor, I don't like to use a lot of water. I like to keep I like a lot of control, and I have a lot more control over the colors when I don't introduce a lot of water. I don't allow the colors to kind of play and mix. Sometimes I will do that, but for images like these where there's lots of details, I definitely want to control my water use so I have a lot more control over where my color goes and where my color doesn't. So I'm just about done here with that beige for the cake. Basically, that's all I used for the body of the cake. The upper part, there is some flowers and strawberries, but there's also some frosting. We'll color that pink later. Right now, I'm kind of going in, blending it out, smoothing it out a little bit. For the color, basically to activate the color, you just take your damp brush. That's why I like to spray the water down onto my just the laminated piece of paper. Pick up like a small droplet or a little bit of water. I find that that's easier to control when I spray it onto a palette versus dipping my brush into a bowl of water. And then with that damp brush, I'll go to whatever chosen color I have and mix the water with the watercolor, and that will start to activate that watercolor. And once I feel like I've got it mixed up and it's a nice consistency, that's when I'll come to my paper and start to paint out. And you can control the intensity of your color just by how much water you use. So sometimes when my color is too intense, you'll see me go to my laminated piece of cardstock and use it like a palette. Well, I'll get some of the color off my brush and then incorporate a little bit more water to dilute that color to soften that pink so it's a little bit softer. So now that I've colored some of the strawberries and some of the flowers and the frosting, I'm now moving on to strawberries and using that really beautiful red color. I really love it. It's kind of like a fruit punch color, and it's so pretty. So I quickly colored the strawberries in, and now I'm going to move down to the bottom flowers. They look like roses to me. First I did a little wash over the flowers, and then I went in with less water, so more concentrated watercolor, and kind of added some of the details back in for the petals. So making those little kind of almost like U shapes for the petals, and I'm just copying the lines that are actually in the stamped image itself. I'm not making up the flower petals, I'm just kind of going back over them with my paintbrush to intensify them and just add more detail to these roses. Once I finish with the pink, we're actually going to move on to yellow. We have the yellow that you see in the upper kind of right side of my card. I'm just picking it up and using the straight yellow to color in some of the flower centers as well as some of the flower petals that you see me coloring in here. The yellow is pretty simple. I'm using it almost straight as is. It's very bright and intense, and I really love it. Even though it looks a little chartreuse on the swatch card, it does read yellow once it's on your watercolor. Now you see me actually grabbing some of the yellow and grabbing a little bit of the red and mixing to create orange. And I'm coloring now some of the flower centers with my orange, mainly those flowers that I had with the yellow petals. I'm making the flower center orange. And then I'm going to grab that orange color and start to color some of the petals. You can see I colored that flower on the left side of the cake orange. I'm going to move on and color this bottom petal on the right side, or this bottom flower on the right side orange as well. So it's pretty cool that you can actually mix these colors on the swatch palette as well to kind of make your own shade. But I did find myself activating the color, placing it down onto my palette, and then mixing it mostly for the red. For the orange, I'm mixing it with some of the residual red that's actually on my palette to make that orange color. Now I'm going back in with a little bit more intensified orange, so a little bit more of the color, more red, a little more orange or yellow to make it more intense, and going in and adding some details to the flower petals, making it a little darker in the center. So we have gradations as well, where it's dark, a little bit darker from the center of the petal and lighter towards the tip of the petal. And once I kind of finish this, we will be able to move on to our next shade, which is purple. And I really found myself, besides the making the orange, all the colors that I wanted were basically in this palette. It's a really great palette of colors, and I really like how bright and happy they feel. Very perfect for kind of a birthday or celebratory theme. So we're almost done here with adding the final details. I'm now taking that purple and adding a little shadow to some of the pink flowers, adding a little detail to anywhere that's pink, so the frosting as well, because that purple is so dark, it does really create a nice shadow. So then since those areas are dry, it's a great time to do it. Now I'm going to move on to actually coloring my remaining two flowers purple. So I'm starting with that purple darkest or most intense towards the center of the petals. Not really the center of the flower, because the flower center is going to be yellow and orange. But I'm starting with that purple towards the center of the flower petals and then blending it out to create a gradation over the petals. I will also add some of that more intense color anywhere there would a petal overlap, so there would be a shadow, or to highlight the details that the stamp stamps. Here I am kind of repeating that process for one of the flowers at the top of the cake. And this color is such a pretty purple. I think it really blends nicely with the other warm colors that I have in this palette. And once I finish with adding some of these shadows here, we are on home stretch. I'm just going to mix up a little bit more orange for the center. And since I have it there, I'll add a little bit more detail to some of my other orange flowers and images, just making those details pop a little bit more. And then we'll be ready to move on to some of the leaves. I'm going to start actually with the tops for the strawberries. I'm using this teal color, which is so pretty, using it for those strawberry tops. And then I'm now going to start to color in some of the leaves towards the bottom of the cake. There's these wider leaves, and there's more of these fern-like leaves. So I'm coloring the fern-like leaf on the left side of the cake with that teal as well. And there's also a green in our watercolor swatch that I will use for some of the leaves. I never like to have my leaves just one shade of green. I like to have at least a couple, because it's just make more interesting. If there's always a lot of leaves in an arrangement, with so much surface area devoted to leaves, just one color is kind of boring. So just about done here with the teal, and we'll switch over to our sort of our lighter shade, our Kelly green. So I'm adding some more details with the teal, but very concentrated right now. You can see I have kind of a pattern where I do a wash first, and then once it's dry, I'll go back in with more concentrated color to add in the details. So here we have that lighter green, and I apologize, my swatch card, the green that I'm pulling from is off camera or out of sight, but there is this beautiful kind of Kelly green or emerald green included on the palette as well, and I'm coloring or painting in all the remaining leaves with this green. Once I finish doing that wash, then I would go in with more intensified or less water really of that green and add in the veins of the leaves or a little shadow to the underside of some of the leaves just to make them a little bit more interesting, have a little bit more depth. I will even grab some of that teal and add that here and there if I feel like I'm not getting enough contrast with that concentrated Kelly green. Oh, now I've turned it around so you can see that Kelly green once I'm done with it. So now I'm moving on to the blue. The last color, the final color I haven't used is that blue, that really rich cobalt blue. And I use it to color in to the cake stand. But later I'll actually do it over again off camera in pink because I just didn't feel like the blue worked. But I started with the blue. Again, you coloring anything that I think will be in shadow with more intense, but I try to keep this very, very soft and light. And actually, I felt like it was too dark, so I do get it a little wet and then try to lift up some of the color. That's what you see me doing when I place my towel on top of it. I'm trying to lift up some of the color. It just felt like a little too dark. Now I'm adding that blue to make the strawberry seeds because it's nice and dark and intense. Adding it to some of the leaves just to kind of make the veins pop a little bit more. And that's pretty much done with the blue. The last thing we're going to do here is mix up some more of our orange, so that yellow and that red together, to paint our candles. So the base of the candles, the wax part of the candle, I'm painting with our orange. And again, starting with kind of a wash over the image. Then I will go back in with a little bit more concentrated color and add in some of the details. Some of these candles are striped. Actually, most of them are striped, and then some of them are spotted. So I'm going to come back in here in just a minute. I'm mixing up some more of my color right now. You can see me mixing up, making it more intense. And now I'm going in over these candles and just highlighting, or actually just literally painting right over the details that were stamped on the candle in the stamp set itself. And once I finish with that, we'll just have the flames to do. I'm going to turn my palette around here, pick up some of that yellow, color in the flames real quick with that. And of course, I'll finish with a tiny bit of our orange again, just at the center of the flame, just to really make it look more realistic. Once I finish with that, we are all done with our no line coloring. I went ahead and die cut my images out. You can see there's my pink cake stand. I ended up doing it again with our pink shade because I thought it just didn't quite go the blue cake stand. And then I've grabbed some Prismacolor pencils. I'm going to color in some more of the details, this is kind of approaching this as my dark, my shadow. I felt like there was still a little flat, and honestly, when you bring in colored pencils to your watercoloring or even your Copic colored images, this just adds a little bit more, especially when this is no line coloring, because no line coloring you tend to lose that hard definition. Because we didn't stamp our images, our lines aren't stamped in black. So by bringing in the sharpness that your colored pencils can bring, it really just starts to bring those lines out again, sharpens everything. It's almost like it was out of focus, and then you bring in your colored pencils to just go around the outside, either add a little shadow. I'm either adding a little shadow with my colored pencils or coloring in the details, like the lines that the stamped image had with my colored pencils. That will just sharpen it, like brings it into focus. And a little bit goes a long way. You don't need to do much coloring at all. We've already done most of the coloring when we did our watercoloring. So we're just taking these pencils, they should be really sharp, and just kind of going along the sides, the details, just fine tuning those lines so it looks a little bit more focused and those details are more apparent. And that's pretty much it. I'm just finishing up some of the leaves here. Again, kind of going over those veins, adding a little shadow to the other side. Basically, everywhere we added a shadow before when we did our watercoloring, that's kind of where you're going with your colored pencils. Now we're going to move on to our sentiment. So I have the floral cake stamp set again. I'm going to stamp it onto a scrap of Dev White cardstock here. I am going to heat emboss, so I did stamp it in Unicorn White Pigment Ink, which has become my new favorite ink for heat embossing. Dipped it into some Hero Arts gold embossing powder, heat set with my heat tool. Then I used the coordinating die to die cut the sentiment. So yes, this floral cake set has dies for the sentiment, which is awesome, or for all the sentiments, which is awesome. I have an A2 panel here of Peony Cardstock. I've added some liquid adhesive to the backside, and I've now stuck it down to an A2 top folding white card base. Now I'm going to arrange my cake and candles on my card front. Once I get it in the arrangement that I like, I'll grab a piece of press and seal, place it carefully on top so nothing shifts, because now that I've got it all perfect, then flip it over so I am looking at the back side of my die cuts. So now I can add some foam adhesive. When I'm adding this foam adhesive, I am being careful to make sure that the adhesive is kind of connecting multiple die cuts together, so the candles to the cake. That just makes it more one unit and easier to work with when we flip it back over and add it to our card front. So you can see here I removed the backing, stuck my cake candles and cake stand down to my card front. I've also added some foam adhesive to the sides of my sentiment. I want to leave the center of the sentiment clear so I can place it right on top of that spindly part of the cake stand. And that, once I stick that down, our card is complete. I'll hold it to the camera here so you get a good look at all the details. I love the florals on this cake. They're so elegant and pretty. And that watercolor palette that we use to no-line color these images in is so pretty, so fresh and lively. Really gives some fun energy to this birthday card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.